People's Choice and Christian's top 5. Let's move on to the more exciting, I think, category of the top 5 best tactic cards in the game. And we're going to once again work our way from 5 to first. And this time, not so many tied. For the worst tactic cards, 2nd through 5th, we're all tied for basically 2nd place. For the best tactic cards, we have a very clear winner, a very clear 2nd place, and then 3rd through 5th kind of get a little about the same amount of votes. I have 3 honorable mentions here listed. I'm just gonna list them all, and we'll talk about them, pick out the best ones or whatever. So let's just fire it away. So the 3 honorable mention best cards in the game are, from People's Choice, Berserker Tactics, Tactical Approach, and Cunning Ploy / Issue Commands. And I put them both in there because they're basically like, I'm going, not my other friend is going type of cards. So out of these 3, what are your thoughts on these 3 honorable mentions?
Okay, so Tactical Approach, we'll get to that when we get to my list. But yeah, Tactical Approach, great card. Like I said, we'll talk about it more. Cunning Ploy is an amazing card. Cunning Ploy is a really good card. And the reason it's so good is because most of the time you're not going to have 4 or 5 combat units that are all attacking at the same time. That's very rare. Usually it's 2 or 3 combat units that are killing stuff, and then your other units are going to need to score objectives. So what Cunning Ploy allows you to do is it allows you to get use out of those units that are playing support and that are camping out on objectives and are healing and are doing other stuff. So you still get the value out of those units, but you can put it into setting up charges on your cav, on your silenceman. It's a great card. I love Cunning Ploy. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I agree. Both Issue Commands and Cunning Ploy, what they allow for, first of all, is they allow for a unit to be utilized while engaged without attacking or retreating.
Yes, that's a big one too.
It gives you a way to pass while you're engaged, which is against the rules of the game, right? And it's against the rules of the game for a reason, because if you can sit on objective and just pass, then that allows things to happen like just never moving. So these, first of all, do that. But as you said, you can pretty much just pour in extra action economy into your more expensive units and get the most use out of them, right? So fantastic cards. Issue Commands and Cunning Ploy both.
Yep, I totally agree.
One thing I'll say is Cunning Ploy I think is superior because it's unlimited range. In Issue Commands, you have to be in long range of the commander, and the commander has to activate. So Cunning Ploy has way more use, and the position game is strong in this game. So, but both of them for honorable mentions are in one there. So, and then of course, Berserker Tactics I don't think needs explanation.
Actually, I would like to talk about this if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. I just mean it is such a popular, well-known card that we don't have to read it off. Or anything.
Yeah, no, everyone. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everyone knows what this card does.
It's extra auto wounds on a trigger that's never used, so you can combine. You can combine with a bunch of other cards. It's just absolutely fantastic. What were you going to say about it?
So I will say it is an amazing card, and you can just auto kill some units. And like you said, it can combine with the charge. You can combine with the charge cards, with the before melee, with the after attack. So there's a lot of triggers. But I will just say you do have to be careful because I have played this card quite a few times, and I have killed the unit, but I've taken so many wounds that I have set myself up for a counter charge, right? Especially if they play Final Strike. Some of the other cards we'll get to. You can hurt yourself just as much. So I would say definitely play it. It's an amazing card, but you do have to be careful because you can put yourself in a compromising position.
Do you have an honorable mention not listed here?
My honorable mention is Final Strike. I'm sure when we get to the actual top 5, I'm sure Final Strike is in there. There's another card in this deck that replaces Final Strike for me, but Final Strike is an amazing card.
Yep, and you're right. We will go in depth in a bit.
Yeah, so we'll talk about it then. Sounds
all
good.
Right. Number 5, People's Choice best tactic card in the game is a kind of more a category, I would say, and that is because I added a couple of votes into the main vote, which is What Is Dead May Never Die, coming in at number 5. But there were a couple other votes for It Shall Not End Until My Death, and the Maggie card that keeps a unit alive. So the theme here is, and I bet if To the Last was on a card, this would be here as well. Yeah. So the theme here is, oh, you thought you killed me, but you didn't. Let's take a look at what is dead may never die. Why don't you, since you know it so well, why don't you tell us how that works?
Okay. So what is dead may never die? It has 2 triggers. The first is when a friendly combat unit would be destroyed, the unit is not destroyed but remains in play with 1 wound. So right there, pretty solid card, right? Pretty amazing card. And then it has another trigger that's easier to play. Start a friendly turn, target 1 friendly combat unit. This unit restores 1 wound plus 1 wound for each of its destroyed ranks. So yeah, it's just an amazing card. You can always get value out of it if you have a unit that isn't going to die, but you don't want to hold on to it for the rest of the game. You can play this card and heal them back up. That's just the second part. So the first part is amazing because on its own, it's a very powerful card, but it's especially powerful in the Greyjoy deck because the Greyjoys have so much healing, right? We heal off, I think, 5 of our 7 base cards, not including the units that have Dauntless and abilities that heal themselves. So your opponent can spend turns and throwing waves of units at your units to try to kill them. And when they do, you just play this card, and it's going to cost them another activation to try to finish them off. So solid card. You can still die to the panic check, of course. So it's not a guarantee that when you play it they're going to live. But yeah, still an amazing card, and one of the cards people hate, I think.
Yep. I totally see why this made the cut. Yeah, I think it's amazing in both instances, as you say. I don't really have anything else to add except for it's fantastic. Oh, you can also, like you said, you might fail the panic and die, or you might pass and heal up from the pass, like Dauntless or something like that.
Exactly.
Right?
Or Osh's card. Yeah.
Yeah. So it going up against Greyjoys, you really want to finish off a unit. And then this card is just like, nope. And then the healing just, now they're back to full health before you know it. It's a problem.
Yeah.
And we don't even have to mention my nemesis of the in the game.
No,
So
that'll be another video.
yeah, even when you do finish off a unit, that it's just not, it doesn't help, right? It makes it even worse. But yeah, what does that never die? People's choice number 5. I totally agree. And the question then remains what to do about this card if you are coming up against it. So you're the Greyjoy player. What do you think, like, you don't want to see across the table in regards to this card? Or if you were gonna like, how do you prep for it? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so thinking in faction, what I do to prep for it is I bring Makoro. Makoro, I think, is one of the better 4-point NCUs, and his ability to block, start a friendly turn. You can block your opponent from playing orders or tactics cards. So if you know you're going to kill a unit and you don't want them to pop this card, that's a great counter. Something I look out for whenever I'm in a Greyjoy mirror match. Outside of that, counterplot, obviously. Daenerys has it in Targaryens, but Lannisters have it in their base deck. So that's something you have to watch out for as counter strategy. But that's a little bit more niche because Tyrion, he's not really in a combat unit, but just something to be aware of.
Sure.
Rising temperatures also stops this. Yeah, right.
Yep, rising temps, and then we also have Winter is Coming, I think.
Yes, Winter is Coming is the big one. Winter is Coming. That card, I've lost.
You come to hate that card.
Yeah, no, I love that card. It's a great card, but it does block what is dead. So that's another thing to watch out for, especially on Solar Cav. So,
yep. I think the other one, so basically preventing your unit from playing cards is the main idea here. I think the other one I'm trying to think of is
there's Mage. Mage is the closest. Oh, to prevent me from playing cards.
Oh, I was gonna say Unsuspecting Charge from like Damon Sand's attachment, but
does that do that? It does, doesn't it?
No, I'm reading it now, and it's the Martell unit can't be the target of enemy orders or cards, so it doesn't even work against.
It doesn't.
Doesn't even work. I don't know how you even use that. That's yeah. Anyways, so yeah, so there you go. Prep for that possibility by having a trick up your sleeve to prevent cards from being played. Um, Otherwise, just prepare and know for, like a lot of these best cards, you might think like, you know, the mentality like, what do I choose? Do I always think my opponent has the card, or do I just play as if they don't? Right. And
Oh,
my answer,
Flateman has no secrets. Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, there you
That's
go.
yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
Um,
Sorry.
It's all good. My answer would be like, it's not so black and white. I would probably play thinking as if they always don't have the card, unless if they do, it destroys you, right? Like, so you're like, okay, I have an opportunity to go for this kill. I'm gonna go for it as if they don't have that card. But if they do have the card and I'm caught out of position, I lose the game. I may not go for that kill then, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Unless I can for sure get it somehow, like preventing cards. So I'd say it's a combo of, for me personally, is I'm not gonna do nothing all game, worrying about you having the card, like playing as if you have it all game, because then I'll miss out on some kills that I could have had. So I'm gonna play as if you don't have it, unless that situation occurs where if you do have it, it ruins me. So that's
Yes, I would agree. And also, this is coming from experience and what I saw at LVO. A lot of players that I played against put so much. They played against Greyjoys with we'll say it with Balon. It changes the game because I mean, a lot of players will invest resources to killing units, right?
yeah,
And and it doesn't really, I mean, it doesn't really matter because I just have Balon. And so that's one thing I would watch out for. And it's the same thing with What Is Dead, because you don't want to be investing. Obviously, I mean, obviously you got to get into combat and kill units. That's the way this game works. So I'm not saying don't do that, but I will say
well,
you got to be
there are
careful.
arguments against that. There are arguments against that actually.
I mean,
So
if you're playing free folk, I guess, but I think if you're playing Targs or you're playing, well, I mean that's true. You can always play objectives, but my point is if you're playing with the mindset to kill something, just be careful how you do it, because a lot of times you can invest tons of resources in trying to kill a unit and then they're not dead from this card.
yeah,
So and then because of that, now you can be exposing yourself to a flank charge from Vic or whatever's going to happen. So just something to watch out for sure.
absolutely. All right, so let's move on to Christian's pick for number 5 best tactic card in the game. What do you got?
Okay. So for me, this is a fun card. It's a card I really love. And so just to preface it, these cards are in order. These are in order.
Oh, these
And
ones are in order. Okay.
these are in order, yes. And I don't think I don't think any of them are OP. I just think they're all solid cards, except for the last one. I'll talk about the last one. But this card is one of Stannis' cards. It's very obvious. It's Tactical Approach. We'll just read it. I mean, you guys can see how good it is for yourself. I'm sure you guys already know how good it is anyways. But start of the round, target one friendly combat unit. Attach this card to that unit until the end of the game. While attached, each time this unit is performing a melee attack dice, after one attack dice, you may spend one condition token from the defender. If you do, this attack deals plus D3 wounds. If this targets Stannis' unit, deal 3 wounds instead of rolling. So it's an amazing card. The fact that it's supported so well because Baratheons already have so much condition token play, so you're always going to be able to play it, right? And especially on Stannis, when he is able to mark target, you can always guarantee the plus 3 wounds basically. Yeah, it's a great card. The only thing that holds it back is it's a starter round trigger.
And
You're going
thank God for that.
I know. If it wasn't, it would be the best card in the game, probably.
That's all I gotta say about it. Thank
So
God it has a start of round trigger.
yeah, so you can't go first and then take bags. Oh, I have it, I'll play it. No, you can't do that. You gotta draw a start of round. But they have Justin Massey. They can with Battle Plan, they can guarantee it. So it's an amazing card. But
So that was your choice for number 5. We're gonna move on to number 4, best card in the game. People's choice is a tie. So 3rd and 4th is tied. But we will cover Final Strike first, since it was mentioned as your honorable mention.
yep.
So Final Strike at number 4.
Number 4. Yeah, so Final Strike, after an enemy completes a melee attack, for each wound the defender suffered, the attacker suffers 1 hit. If you control crowns, this is the Baratheon version. If you control crowns, the attacker suffers -1 in defense dice rolls against these hits. So as an aggro player myself, and as someone who runs light armor units, this card is it's the thing I have to look out for the most. It can really it's just a nasty card. It's the fact that the wounds are included with it's wounds total, so it's not just wounds suffered from the melee attack. It's also the panic check, and then it combos with crowns to make you -1 to defense dice rolls. So, I mean, with me running 5-up armor units, I could easily take as many wounds after the attack as I did to that unit. So it's a nasty card. It's one of the reasons I run Makoro. Yeah, it's an amazing card. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple reasons why it's amazing, other than just like the basic like doing hits for wounds. One of those things is kind of what you mentioned, your big powerhouse hit units that are going to deal a lot of wounds, many times don't have the best defense save, right? So
Screamers, silence men. Yep, totally right.
yes, yeah. So they're typically called glass cannons, but there are of course elite units out there. I'm not saying that there aren't, like, especially like Lance Cav, um, but even the cheaper Lance Cav version in Tyrell, um, would also fall into this category of that big swing. Um, it comes from a lot of times weak defense units, right? So that just pairs so nicely with what the card does. And in general, just game wise, automatic hits at any time are fantastic, right? I mean, they're not dependent on a roll. You're going to dish out the hits. So the wounds, I mean, the damage that's going to be dealt is dependent on their save, of course. But yeah, it's also like a free.
It's free attack back, basically.
Yeah,
It'd be equivalent to a free attack back.
even better. I think it's top 5 for a reason. It's fantastic.
Yeah, amazing card. How would you advise someone to watch out for Final Strike?
Bring heavy lance calf. There you go. Done.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Four
That's a good way to play.
four of them. Steer and Free Folk has Final Strike.
Yes.
And I think his version's it's actually better because, first of all, Free Folk take more wounds, right? Like Baratheon are known for higher defense and stuff. So like you can punch certain Baratheon units, but I mean, Free Folk, come on, right? Like you pour in dice to Free Folk, they're going to melt. So it's really easy to get use out of Final Strike and Steer Free Folk.
Yeah.
And the trigger of being in long range of Steer, like for the -1 to save for the hit, like that's a lot easier than holding crowns, I think, as well. So
Yeah. Both are very good. Yeah, they're for me. That's, like I said earlier, that's one of the reasons why I bring Makoro is to block that. But I can only do it once, so unless I one shot them, it's gonna come again. So
yeah,
great card.
This is actually interesting that this falls into the what is dead category of how to play against it. All the things that we listed before, like Winter is Coming and stuff, is gonna probably be the best advice to playing against this card, right? Like,
yep, totally.
I mean, besides heavy lance calf, but anyways. All right, so moving on to Christian's choice number 4. What do you got?
Cool. So this was already mentioned. This was another card that was mentioned in the honorable mentions, but Cunning Ploy.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, like we talked about, it's just allows you to get more. Like we already said, it allows you to get more utility out of the units that aren't going to be in combat. And one thing we didn't mention is we mentioned it with issue commands, but there's no range requirement. Every time I play this card, I always think, wait a minute, do I have to be in long range? Nope, it's just
yeah,
any units. So
yeah,
it's a
I
great
did
card.
mention that as why I think it's superior to issue
Yeah,
commands.
it is better. It is better. So yeah, Cunning Ploy, great card. I love it. I wish Victorian had it, but that's okay.
I mean, Cunning Ploy sounds more like a Euron thing.
It is. It fits Euron better. It does fit Euron better.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you don't need more tricks for Victorian.
No, you're right. You're right.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to number 3, which was tied with number 4, Final Strike. Number 3, best tactic card in the game, People's Choice, goes to Rising Temperatures. All right, so rising temperatures we see in the Martell base deck, and rising temperatures says when an enemy combat unit activates, attach this card to that unit until they are targeted by swords. While attached, the unit suffers the following effects: accumulative throughout the game. So on a second round or higher, can't be targeted by friendly tactic cards. And now we see a card that can nullify the previous 2 spots of number 4 and number 5 best tactic cards in the game right off the bat in round 2 or longer from Rising Temps. Round 3 or longer, we have the to hit profile of that unit suffers a -1. And then 4 or longer in the game, round 4 or longer, we have cannot heal, no restoring wounds. What a card. I can totally agree. Top 5 card. What are your thoughts on this one?
It should be higher. I mean, we'll get to it. We'll get to it with my list, but because it is in my list as well, and it's higher. But yeah, this card is crazy good. It's the I think that can change the way an opponent plays more than any other card in the game.
Interesting.
It can completely negate. I mean, if you put this on, I mean, so in my opinion, when I run as a Greyjoy player, if I'm running an infantry unit, I either want it to be able to heal or I want it to be able to attack. And this card deals with both of that. So it's and also I can't target them with cards. So no rush of aggression, no iron price, no what is dead. So as a Greyjoy player, this card is just brutal. Now I do have ways to play around it, which we don't even talk about. But yeah, it's not even against Greyjoys, against Starks, because the only way to get rid of it is to target them with swords, which makes it even better. So it's a crazy card. I would say it's the best card in the game.
Wow. It is really good. I think the thought of the design of the card was like, well, swords is probably the most common zone, so it's going to be easy for it to fall off, right? But
not when they have Aaron Martell or Aaron, what's his name? You know what I'm talking about?
Eris Oakheart.
Not with that guy.
Yeah. So there is a play of Eris Oakheart and Walder in CU as well, which I don't think is worth it. I've been trying Walder without outflank, and I don't think he's worth it. But maybe for the Rising Temps card to stay on as long as possible, you can Eris Oakheart. You can put him on the swords, keep him there, pass out a weaken token because of his ability. You don't get the swords, but who cares? You have things like quick fire and stuff like that Martells can use.
Yeah.
And then the next round you go first, you take swords again, so your opponent can't have it. And then during that round is when you use Walder, and then you go first again the next round. So that's 4 rounds in a row that they cannot remove the card with a combo like that. So another couple things is the like the most impactful. Well, the restore wounds is brutal, but I think the not being targeted by cards is the best.
Yes, is the best part of it. Yeah,
like it should be on the round 4 or later, right?
Yeah.
Like to maybe balance it out. But round 2 or later, like that is brutal.
Yeah.
The -1, I think the -1 to hit could probably be on the round 2 spot, and then the not heal on the round 3, and then the cards round 4. Because like, I don't know, you can keep units alive and punch harder and things with cards.
Well, there's also some. I mean, for instance, units that commanders whose entire game plan is playing cards off their unit. So like Eddard, right?
Yeah.
All 3 of Eddard's cards require you to play tactics cards off him. This card just that's it. Like 3 cards are just completely shut down. So it's a crazy good card. I mean, I don't want to say it's OP. I really hesitate to complain. I like to complain about when things are underpowered more than when things are overpowered. But this card is crazy good. I think it's fine. I think what they should do though is maybe make it so it comes off after you kill a unit, similar to Unbowed Unbent. I think Unbowed Unbent comes off after you kill a unit. So I think that would be fair. But the fact that it can only come off with swords, which Martells already want, they already want swords for Alaria and all their other stuff and all their other cards. So Yeah, it's a crazy good card. I love this card. It's really, really. I would play against an opponent with 4 tactical approaches before I played against Rising Temperatures. I mean, I hate this card.
All right, so being aware of the card before picking your list in a 2-list format is probably my best advice, because your 2 lists, hopefully are varied, not similar. And so you might have one list that's 8 activations where you're 5 combat units. There is no one that's elite powerhouse. So Rising Temps then is like there's not an obvious choice to which unit should take the Rising Temps, and you can then put more of your energy and cards and focus into your other combat units and use that 5th one that got Rising Temps as your token holder. Yeah, and again, commander choice and things like that. So it is interesting to say that, right? Like to think of it that way, because what this card does, as you said, impacts the game so highly that you think about this card when list building, right? Like you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I need
100%.
one of my lists to minimize the effect of Rising Temps if I come up against it, which is why it's such a great card. So we have number 3 from Christian. What do you got?
Okay, so my number 3 is Fury for the Fallen. I love this is probably my favorite card in the game, both in terms of its effectiveness and its thematicism. So Fury for the Fallen is after an enemy completes a melee attack, target Eddard Stark's unit. It performs 1 attack or charge action. If the defender was destroyed, Eddard's unit may roll any attack or charge distance dice. And it also has the split trigger of started from turn, draw 1 tactics card. So this card is really good because Eddard Commander comes with probably the best 6-point infantry unit in the game. His honor guard are amazing, and being able to attack or charge any other unit after one of your units is attacked is really powerful. It's basically like a final strike version of Eddard, and not only is it an attack, it's also a charge. So if you need to get a charge that you had to do anyways, you can play this card and set yourself up for next turn. It also stacks with Rally Cry, so you can heal that unit back up. It's an amazing card. I love this card. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's a great choice, great pick. It was also voted a couple times as best card. Didn't quite make the honorable mentions list, but to add to your why the card is so great, the rerolls, man,
The
rerolls,
rerolls.
baby.
Yep.
You gotta have your rerolls. Like if you're trying to punch, you need rerolls, and this card gives you rerolls. Like period. And like you said, it's Sentinel on crack because, or even Jokin's and Widower's Protector on crack because you can you can target any unit with the attack or
Yeah,
charge.
exactly. Yeah,
Like
it's crazy good.
Eddard just gets pissed and is like, well, now I'm gonna mess your army up, you jerk.
Yeah,
So
it's so thematic too. It's probably one of the most thematic cards in the game. And also with Sansa, you can just bring this back every you can just keep on recurring it, and it really can deter your enemy from attacking you, because I mean, with how good Eddard's unit is, it can really hurt you. So yeah, I love this
yeah.
card. One of my favorite
Yeah.
cards in the game. And just also remember, the Surge Forth comes after this card would trigger. So
Yeah.
don't think you're gonna kill a unit and be able to surge out of line of sight, because you're not. Eddard's just gonna charge you in the face. So
Yeah, this is so this is after an enemy completes a melee attack. So we can compare this card to Count the Cuts, right?
yeah, yep,
I think
yeah.
I'd rather
Except
have this card.
I think so too. Yeah, I think most people would.
Let's move on to number 2, the second best card in the game, voted on from the people. And this is a clear second place. So now we jump into where most votes went. And for second place, we have Counterplot. No explanation needed. The famous from the game's inception to the world, Counterplot has been a favorite and least favorite card for players since day one. If you don't know Counterplot, it's a counter spell. It's when a card is played, you cancel it, and there's a roll involved. Sung by Sapphire Stats guys do mention how it impacted the card play of Counterplot and its odds of being successful, and how that basically
There's been a discussion. There's been a discussion if it was nerfed or buffed.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
heard it. I've heard
And
that. What do you think?
yeah,
Like, what is your opinion on that?
it was a great chat. And where the big plays happen, where a lot of cards are played, is that first turn of the round, that first big charge, right? And counterplot can really put a dent into those first big top of round turns. But in that case, the Lannister player hasn't had a chance to get the zones to help with the reroll or the
Yeah.
odds of rolling. So that is why you can think of it as being nerfed, even though overall it has uh, you know, kind of it can be better than it was before, but when you're using the card most often, it's actually kind of slightly not as good.
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember. So it used to be if you control crowns or bags, you just got to reroll, right?
I think so.
And then the if you control both, this roll automatically succeeds. That was added after. That wasn't. Yeah.
I don't think there ever was an auto succeed.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I think a lot of people would rather have a 3-up with a reroll than a 2-up. I think the odds of that are succeeding better. But controlling both, I mean, if you bring, let's see, if you bring Joffrey into if he claims bags, then you have both. So I could see some situations where it is better, but overall, I would say it was slightly nerfed, but still a great card, still an amazing card.
Yeah. And it falls into the category that we're saying, this very apparent trend of our top 5 best cards here, of one of the ways to stop these other best cards. Right?
Yeah,
So when you look at these amazing cards that do amazing plays, you think, man, how am I going to go up against that? Counterplot is one of your answers. And it also fits into the theme of this discussion of very, very useful at many times during the game. Right?
yeah. I will say though, I mean, it is still because if you only control one zone though, it is still luck dependent. I mean, at LVO against Jason in our final match, I played the card, and he had crowns, and he rolled he rolled and he rolled a 1. So
Ouch.
yeah, it was. Odds are he cancels that, but he didn't. So it is still luck dependent if you don't have
What was the card that was played, by the way?
assault orders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that allowed me to charge in, and then that I had turn order, so I charged in. He crit filled the panic check. It was unlucky. He was rolling pretty bad that whole game, but yeah, he crit filled the panic, and then top round I finished him off and overran. So if he had succeeded, 5 out of 6 times, he would have blocked that whole interaction. So it was unlucky, but most of the time, the card's going to go off. So still, yeah, it's an amazing card.
Yep, and I don't think there is anything you can do about counterplot. The only thing that I would say
Counterplot it.
is well, that's true. But the only thing I would say is, as mentioned, like the top of round first turn plays are even more important because then they don't have any chance to take zones. Use your cards first turn.
Yeah,
Also,
totally.
it's one of those cards, when you have that mental hesitation of what if he has the card. It's just important to remember, like, play like he doesn't, as long as if he does, you're not ruined. The game isn't over for you if he has the card. So
Yeah,
there are some cards that you like, because you have the card, it makes you think you should do something different in the game. Oh, I have this card. Now I can do this and it would be great. Well, if that card gets canceled, how bad how out of position are you, or how bad is it for you? If it's bad, then don't do that play against this card. So
another thing to talk about with counterplot is it does scale with the power level of your opponent's deck, right? So as a Greyjoy player, like when I'm running Victorian, I've got 4 elite cards that I have. I have What is Dead, Rush of Aggression, Assault Orders, and We Do Not So, right? That's 8 cards in my hand. He's only got 2 counterplots. So if he counterplots an Assault Orders or a What is Dead, I'm kind of fine with it because I've still got, a bunch of other cards that I could play that are really good. But if you're running a weaker deck like Targs or Starks and you're really just gunning for the Assault Orders, if you lose an Assault Orders, that really hurts,
yeah,
right? Same thing with Martellus. I mean, he plays Rising Temps, you counterplot it. Like, that sucks. It sucks losing Rising Temps, but you still got Dune Tactics. You still got Unbowed and Bent. You still got, Oberyn's probably the best commander. You still got Oberyn's cards. So I would say this card does hurt some factions more than others. If you've only got one main card that you're trying to get off and it gets counterplotted, that does suck.
That's a great point. That's a great point. All right, and that was the people's choice for second place, by a long shot. It is going to jump even more of a long shot. There's going to be even more separation into the first place card. But for Christian's number 2, what do we got?
Okay, it's Rush of Aggression. It's my favorite card in the game. It's the card that it's the card that I look for the most. It's the card that I hope to draw the most. So when a friendly unit performs a charge action before rolling charge distance dice, this unit automatically counts as rolling a 6 on all charge distance dice, and their melee attack gains critical blow. After this attack has been completed, unless the attacker is Victarian's unit, they become vulnerable. So this helps Greyjoys out the most because as a infantry only faction, we are hindered. Range hinders us the most, right? Because we don't have cab maneuvers. So it's going to be hardest for us to getting into combat is the hardest part for us. Rush of Aggression solves that. It allows you to auto 6 with the offensive units that you're running, which are usually going to be speed 6. It means that bowmen can't just sit away 12 inches and shoot you, because that puts them in charge range. So it solves the range issue that infantry units have always suffered from, and it gives you crit blow. So that's great. You know, I mean, with Silence Men, you can really just, I mean, Silence Men with Rush of Aggression can hurt basically any unit in the game. And then it does have a downside of becoming vulnerable, but with Newt, your 2 units that you're going to be charging with don't become vulnerable. So it's an amazing card. I love it. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, it is definitely the card that I'm always thinking about, usually against Greyjoys. Like more so than We Do Not Sow. Like I'm always like in my head is Rush of Aggression, right? Like,
Yep.
so for that reason, it's earned a permanent place inside the brain, and for that reason, it's fantastic.
Getting into combat is the first step, and Rush of Aggression lets you alpha strike. So
Yep.
that can let you capitalize on assault, and it lets you capitalize on the assault orders and the We Do Not Sows.
Yeah, the increase in speed to a lot of Greyjoy units also is cool, and Theon Greyjoy. Well, let's see, Rush of Aggression is Victarion only, right? Yeah.
Well, no, so you can do it on any unit. It's just unless the unit is Victarion, they become vulnerable. But it's not really that much of a downside. Like if you're gonna if you want to charge something, you don't really care if you become vulnerable that much. So
no, I meant the +1 speed is just Commander Theon, but
yeah, +1 speed, yeah, totally.
but Attachment Theon does have an auto 6 charge Reckless Heroism as well. So if you pair him into a Vic list, you have pretty much 3 solid units that can just auto 6, right? So you have Newt,
totally.
Victarion, and Theon. Yeah, it's nasty. So yeah, definitely a solid choice. Surprised I didn't get more votes from the people, but definitely an amazing card. Playing against it is just remembering that it can happen. I mean, you can't, there's, besides stopping card play, it's just, yeah, that's it. That's just, when you position, think of it as a long range unit, pretty much.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like their threat range. A lot of times you can position like, oh, they're not going to take a 5-up charge, so I can position here. Well, in this case, that is not the case, right? Like
exactly. Yeah, you have to know that they have it. And speaking on your point, Will in our last game, he did a really good job of playing around that. He was running Rob Commander, and with Tac Repo, with Arya, with Swift Reposition, he was able to stay outside of my Rush of Aggression. So that's a good way to do it, is just to know what cards you have that can, if you got Swift Reposition, if you got Tac Reposition, if you have Arya, if you got cards that can beat the range, then definitely use them.
Yeah, and there's also just good terrain and unit placement play where you can charge lane block. So just good positioning can also just help against this card as well. But
totally.
All right, then moving on to number 1, best card in the game, voted people's choice is what?
Assault Orders We Do Not Sow.
That is correct.
Yep.
That is correct. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, six versions of Assault Orders, I think. And then there's We Do Not Sow base Greyjoys. And then I kind of threw in as like a little like bonus that kind of fits the category of the 3 different like careless aggression cards, start of any round free
Start
attack.
around. Yeah, yeah, totally. Those are good too.
So they kind of fit into this category, but the card itself that got the most votes by far, I think the votes tallied, like the total votes for assault orders tallied more than third, fourth, and fifth best cards combined. Counterplot got a fair share, but
Mhm.
assault orders by far is number one. So if you don't know, it's replacing a zone with a free attack or charge. There are a variety of different ways of getting the charge. It could be from a House Clegane unit, or if you took the swords and Starks, or the Andrew Estermont, Khal Drogo, and Cotter Pike and Vic versions, or if you target Victarion's unit with the zone, then they can do the charge. So, I mean, it's the people's choice because I think the people love to attack things in this game, right? I mean, it is a war game, it is a battle game. It is nice to have. It is just it's just really really strong to have an attack or sometimes charge off the tactics board. It's a free action. It's free action, right? So I can totally see why it's number one in the game. I think there's something to speak on, like Victarion, Gregor, and Khal Drogo are probably the like in just thinking about it, I could look it up, but probably like by far the most played commanders in those factions. So like I can totally see why this card is number one. What do you why do you think this was voted number one by the people?
I would agree. I mean, this poll was directed at the American community, right? The,
I mean it got some. It was, I mean, like most people probably pay attention to my posts in the
are
American community.
Americans, right? Yeah.
But we did get some votes from Russia, UK, Europe. There was a question in the forum that was, what general region are you from?
Uh-huh.
And I got about a dozen from out of the US, right?
Okay.
But by far majority the US, yeah, for sure.
Right. So that makes sense. I mean, here in the States, we like to charge things. And I mean, regardless of playstyle, Assault Orders is a good card. I love this card. So I'm not surprised. I mean, if you're running Gregor, if you're running Starks or Greyjoys or Cotter or definitely Drogo, I mean, you got to kill stuff to support that playstyle. And Assault Orders definitely does that. The charge, the melee attack off the zone is good, and then the charge just makes it even better. So I'm not surprised. I do think that some Assault Orders are better than others. I think the Stark Assault Orders is probably the weakest, because it depends. I mean, Starks do have Total Cav, so you can charge with Total Cav which is pretty nasty, but it can be blocked. If they're going first, they just take the swords, then you can't charge. So it's tough. Whereas Greyjoys can charge off any zone. Well, any zone that targets Vic or Newt. So they have two units that can charge, and they can charge off any zone. So, but they're not lance capped. So it's give and take, I would say.
I personally think that Drogo's, Estermonts, and Cotter Pikes are probably the worst, because you know exactly where it's coming from.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
true. The Stark one is probably second worst or third best, I guess, because it is still a very high limit of just the charge off of swords. But it's better because of things like Sansa and and like Eddard can take the swords and then kill himself, reopen it up, and get another free charge. Like there are just ways that Starks can mess with that.
Yeah, Sansa. I mean, being able to activate user once per game to bring it back, then claim the zone, then play the Assault Orders, then charge is pretty brutal. That's a great combo. I love Sansa, but yeah,
it's nasty.
So Starks do have a way to play around it, yeah.
And then I think the second best version would be Vix with the two different, coming at you with two different units at any time from any zone. And then the best has got to be the Clegane keyword.
Interesting. That surprises me.
I mean, Gregor gives a unit Clegane affiliation, so he can go in anything and get a free charge with that anything. So that's number one. And I think so does Sandor, can give anything Clegane affiliation. And then there's Clegane units. So like you can have every single unit able to get a free charge off of any zone. And so with that, I think Gregor's is the best version.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that. I think I would rank Drogo higher personally, just because he's in a fast cab unit. So it's very tough to avoid the assault orders with if he's in Blood Riders, which you should put him in, or Screamers. They're just flying all over the map. I think it's tough to avoid the assault orders, where you can kind of play around it with Greyjoys and infantry, any infantry commander. But the fact that it is only on his unit does kind of hurt. But I could see that. I could see that.
All right. Yeah, this is just a stellar card. It helps. I think one thing that is important to mention is, like, in the midst of a game, when you're prioritizing and positioning, and like, once the swords is taken, in a game without this card, you're when a unit is activated, you're like, okay, that unit can no longer do anything, right? Like, I'm safe from that unit. This card just throws that out the window. Like,
Exactly.
that you have usually, when you're playing against factions with this card, they don't just fill up tactic zones quickly because of that reason. So now the threat of assault orders, even if they don't have it, is the entire round, which messes with you so much. Like, they don't even have to have the card, but if they don't, if the tactic zone, if there's a tactic zone or two that are empty, you could just pretend like they do, and it sucks, right? So that's, I mean, once you get good with, I think, assault order style of play, I see that play often where, unless it's unless it's like really, really important to fill out the tactics word for some reason, they always leave one open just to mess with you.
Yep,
So
yep. And then bouncing off that, I mean, we'll quickly talk about We Do Not Sow, which
yep.
is another card that's in a Greyjoy base deck that allows you to attack. And if you're good at math, if you're running Vic, you probably found out you have two separate cards that can attack. So between We Do
If you're
Not
good at
Sow,
math, I was waiting for the math part. I was like,
oh, well,
that.
yeah, I want to keep it simple. But yeah, so between We Do Not Sow and Assault Orders, and Newt's got motivated by coin and swords, like, you're gonna attack 2 to 3 times. You can attack you can attack 3 times off the zones if you want to, pretty easily, actually. So yeah,
Yep.
We Do Not Sow with Assault Orders is a brutal combo.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
also, another thing is, we'll get to it in my first, but it can really save off the rising temperatures, because I can Assault Orders, then I can Woody Not Sow, and then I can do 3 or 4 attacks without I can do 2 or 3 attacks without getting rising temperature. So great card as well.
Okay. That is, because you have to activate. I get it. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
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 Very, very good.
So Carl, how would you advise someone to play against an aggressive commander with Assault Orders?
Never put yourself out of position thinking a unit can't do anything, right? That's one thing just to, like, keep in your back pocket, like, against this kind of stuff. I mean, and that's why I rate certain cards not as good as other assault orders, because you actually can do that against things like the Jogo, Estermont, and Cotter Pike ones, because there's only one unit that can do the charge.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, because I love the positioning aspect most of this game, going up against Greyjoys and Rush of Aggression and assault orders, it's just like, there's no answer. Like, there's no
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no good positioning. Like, it's just, well, they might still charge me even though they're activated and the swords is gone. They might still charge me. So
that's another reason why I love. I mean, that's talking about counterplot. It's like, I mean, let's say he takes swords, right? And the popular, if you don't have assault orders, if you're playing against an opponent who doesn't have assault orders, if you take swords, they're not going to be able to get another attack off usually, right? Against Greyjoys, that doesn't work, because I still have 2 more cards that can attack. So
yeah,
you take swords, I go second. I play Woody Not So. I block the horses to prevent you from retreating, or block the bag from preventing you from healing. And you counterplot, right? You counterplot. It's like, okay, that's fine. I still got another Woody Not So. I got 2 more assault orders. It's counterplot doesn't really work into that list as well, and that's going back to that. But I think I would say the best use of assault orders is probably in Greyjoys, just because they can also assault orders into the We Do Not So, into the activation, and just relentlessly attack, just go after just units.
Yep.
It's pretty brutal.
The cards that also kind of fit the category, careless aggression type cards, they're not really. I kind of put them in this category, but they're nowhere near as good.
No, they're situational, I would say. I mean, I've every time I think I played against that card, they played it start of my. I mean, I played against it a couple times, and when it's happened, usually when they get it, it's like in round 3 or 4 when both units are kind of low, and so they'll play the card, and they'll get me down to low health, but they're also at low health, so that's allowed me to take the swords and just finish up killing their unit. So I'm not. I think it's good if you know if they're going first and you know you can kill a unit. But if you don't know that you can kill a unit, I think it can hurt you just as much in my
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, I think a good play of it is when the opponent's going to go first, just to like interrupt that tempo play. But what it also does is
Yeah, totally.
if they take the bait of the activating an NCU, because they're going first, your tempo play at the end of the round and start of the next round is going to be 3 turns in a row.
That's true.
So
That is true.
if you can survive that initial NCU activation and then them going first, if that's not an issue for you, then you're setting yourself up for a triple tempo play at the end, which is what I think is actually cool about the card versus the free attack.
Yeah, it
But
definitely requires a higher skill level, I would say. You have to plan for it more rather than assault orders. I mean, if you're going first as a start player, you're just going to play and charge. Like no factor. You're just going to do it, right? But yeah, the start of round attacks definitely good, but I would say you got to be careful how you play them.
so Christian's number 1, you said, was Rush of Aggression?
Oh no, rising temperatures. I
Rising
would
Temps, that's right.
so
That's right.
so Rush Regression is my favorite card in the game, but Rising
Okay.
Temperatures, I think, like I said, it can just change the way an opponent plays so much. If it can just completely shut down expensive units, and the fact that it's very the not only, like we said, not only does it have crazy good effects, not being able to heal, not being able to be targeted by tactics cards, -1 to hit, it also is very difficult to remove. So I mean,
Eh,
and
eh,
even and well, and
it's
also
easy. It's easy to remove. Just take the
no,
swords.
yeah, take the swords when they have arrows. It's not that simple. And also, I mean, you can get in a situation where you have. I mean, I haven't had this happen myself, but I've seen plenty of games where they've got 2 units, right? One of them has rising temperatures on them, but is not engaged with the unit, and then the other one is engaged, but they don't have rising temperatures, and they're going first. So it's like, okay, do I take the swords and get rising temps off my lance
Yeah.
cav,
Yeah, I see what
or
you're
do I
saying.
get the free attack but rising temperature stays on? It's a
It
tough
does
one. It's a
play
tough card
really
to deal
well
with.
with the with like the guerrilla tactics of Martels, because
Yeah,
they can just stay unengaged from that Rising Temps unit, right?
yeah.
So
So I love the card. It's an amazing card, and like I said, it's one of the reasons why I'm bringing Makoro now on from going forward.
cool. All right, so that settles us up. A couple more things to mention. We had a couple extra votes for this poll, and what do you think? I'm not sure if you looked yet, but what do you think was voted the worst tactic deck in the game? Base deck.
I mean, going just the fact that we had 4 Targ cards in the worst. I'm gonna say Targs. It's got to be Targs, right? Or was it Boltons?
You are correct by 1 vote. So basically a tie. I mean, come
Uh-huh.
on. But technically, Targs were voted to have the worst base tactic deck by the people, followed very closely by House Bolton.
Yeah, yeah.
So not surprising, I don't I don't think.
That's interesting. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one is worse. I think they're both equally bad. I think the Tar deck is very one dimensional. I don't think it's good. That's tough. I think the Boltons and Tars are neck and neck for the 2 worst. What would you say? What do you lean to?
Yeah, I think it speaks for itself. I think they both need some love. That's all. I think the Boltons are like more complicated, which and more like situation or not situational. They're both situational. But it's just funny because like the Targ decks are like the cards are like easy to understand and play, but to make good use out of the cards is when it becomes situational, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
whereas the Boltons, you're like, wait, I gotta do what with this card? Like like I get okay, the trigger's kind of weird, and then the conditions kind of weird, and then I take wounds. Like
Yeah,
they're just not good cards, I think. Like period.
yeah. I
Um,
think what it is too is also we have a lot more Targaryens have become very popular. So we have a lot more Targaryen players than we do Boltons. If the number of Bolton players and Targaryen players were equal, I would say And they might
Yeah.
lean more towards
Yeah,
Boltons.
I 100% agree that I think a lot of these worst deck votes for Targs were from Targ players.
Yeah, but
So,
I don't blame them. I mean, their deck is horrible. I mean, their
yeah.
deck, I would say, needs to be looked at the most. They buff some of the
I
cards a
would
little
say I
bit,
would
but
say Boltons need more love.
yeah,
Unless we're just gonna say they're not really a real faction, but
they're not a real faction.
they're
But
they're
I hate
they're
to
a
say
mini,
it, but
they're a mini faction. Yeah.
yeah, mini faction. I think it goes deeper than their deck. I mean, the problem is, like we said, they're a panic-based faction in a meta where everything is 5 or 6 morale. So
Yeah.
even buffing their deck doesn't really solve the problem. That their only way to put wounds through is through panic damage. So
Yeah.
I think they got to change the panic mechanic a little bit to
Okay.
help them out.
That is a very
But
solid
I
point.
agree. I agree. I think they should buff their deck because the Boltons are awesome. They're really cool. They've got amazing minis. I mean, they've got the coolest minis in the game, and they're just a fun faction to play. So I hope they look at them.
Yep. Yep. All right. So lastly, we'll cover the best base tactic deck. Which faction do you think has the best base tactic deck?
Okay, so first I'll talk. I think for me, I think I put Martells, but personally, I think it's a tie between Martells and Greyjoys. I think they both have amazing decks, but I put Martells, and I think Martells got voted. What is it?
Martell's win. Martell's
Yeah,
win.
yeah.
Yes.
That's not surprising. Yeah.
To me it is. I would vote Greyjoy as the best deck
Really
for sure.
interesting.
Yeah.
Explain.
Well, basically the situation of trying to kill them
Uh
and
huh.
then not, and then them healing back up. The healing is insane. I mean, okay, how about put it like this? Every single card is good.
Oh
like
no, that is true. That is true.
like there's not a sigh of disappointment when you draw from the Greyjoy base deck
I
ever
agree. I agree.
anymore, which is good, and that's how every deck should be, in my opinion. But like, there's not any other deck that you can say it has the same thing. There's always a card or two where you're like, this card, but not in Greyjoys. I don't think so.
I would agree with that. I think for me personally, and I'm not saying that. I mean, I agree with you. I think the Greyjoy deck is insane. I mean, the healing combined with the aggressive cards is crazy good. It's just for me, I think Cunning Ploy and Rising Temperatures are two of the best cards in the game, and combined with good players, I think can leverage those cards more than than I can leverage my What Is Deads. Just in my or we not so's, but that's just personal preference. I think it's whatever you find more annoying to deal with. Is it the guerrilla tactics of Martells or is it the healing of Greyjoys? But I would say they're neck and neck. I think
Yeah,
they're both really strong.
and I understand why Martells were voted as the best deck in the game, because everyone who's faced them is frustrated at how good those cards are, because they inherently mess with you, right? Like, so it's much more impactful in your memory when it's like, man, that deck hurt me because it's messing with your plans, it's messing with your ability to do things, versus like a deck that just has good cards for their own faction, like Greyjoys. Their cards are like saving their units, healing their units. They're not saying you don't get to do this. I'm
Yes,
gonna,
yeah.
I'm gonna outmaneuver you here. And oh, you thought you were gonna attack me? Lowest dice. Like, so I can see why it was voted first. But yeah, Greyjoys and Martells for sure. But
Okay, so last thing for me is I wanted to ask you what is your best card in the game?
my best card in the game. Wow. So I didn't I didn't stop and think about this really. I
Okay,
didn't make.
okay. Here's a better question. What
No,
like
no, no, no.
what?
I have it. I have it. Like
Okay, go ahead.
the first one that came to mind. So I'm just gonna say that because I didn't make my own top five personally.
Okay,
But since you're asking me, I'd probably say Battle Endurance would
Battle
be,
Endurance. Okay.
yeah, is a card when it comes out. I'm just like, like that card is so damn good. Like it doesn't fall off, and it's just amazing. I don't know how it didn't make the list. It was voted, so it was voted. Let's see. Let me take a look here. I think it only got a couple votes though, and
That
I'm
does
just,
surprise me. Yeah, Battle Endurance is an amazing card. I don't know how that. Yeah, you're right. I'm
yeah.
surprised. It's gonna make honorable.
Yeah, it only got a couple votes, so it didn't even make the honorable mention. Um, and I think it's one of the best cards in the game. Battle Endurance is fantastic.
I would agree. Yeah, it's an amazing card.
So there, thank you for asking. But that wraps it up for the Talk of Fame, episode 1, top 5 best and worst tactic cards in the game. Christian, in reflection, how do you feel? How do you think the People's Choice did?
Yeah, I would agree with them on most things. They definitely got it right with field control. But I would say in superior positioning, definitely. But Swift Repo, yeah, I disagree. I love Swift
Yeah,
position. No, no, sorry, you guys are wrong.
That's a big red X buzzer sound for
Yeah,
the
sorry, the community is wrong on that. The customer is not always right.
customer's not
Yeah,
always right.
yeah,
All right.
I love Swift Repo. What about you? Same thoughts?
Same thoughts. Swift Repo's probably one of my top. At least honorable mention in best cards.
Definitely.
So I was very surprised as you are, and I think it actually got a vote or two for best card. So it was one of the few that got voted in both categories.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think Targ players are just kind of overshooting it a little bit. Like I get it. The Targ deck sucks, but not every card. Every card in
Yeah,
the Targ deck is awful. I mean, Swift Repo is still a good card. Maybe
yeah,
not as useful. It's more useful on infantry than cab, but yeah, I love Swift Repo, man. That hurts.
yeah. That's a good point. Also, just to mention, there was only one faction, I think, that got voted for best and worst base tactic deck, and that was Baratheon.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That
I think their deck is solid, but
yeah, they got a solid deck. I mean, they've
they
got
got a
Primal
couple votes
Strike.
for worst deck, but I don't know why.
Maybe last season, not this season.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Anywho,
yeah, their deck's solid. Their deck's solid.
it was an absolute pleasure, Christian. Congrats on your big LVO win. What are you looking forward to here in the Northern California region?
Yeah, so coming up, we've got a tournament at, I believe the next tournament for us is House of the Badger 7. I believe that's the 27th. That'll be at Hobby Badger, unless Joe's changing it. But that's the next tournament I'm looking forward to. After that, we're gonna have our quarterly, our fourth quarterly, I believe. Fourth,
Yeah,
right?
it's quarterly number 4, May 5th.
May
I
6th, I
believe
think.
so.
I think it's May 6th. It's
May 4th.
May 4th. We're both wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be big. I mean, our quarterlies get minimum 20 people. I mean, huge turnout.
Yeah.
Some of the best players in the country will be there.
Yeah. Pat has knocked it out of the park with making sure the quarterlies are fantastic.
Yeah.
But,
So those are always great. And then coming up after that, we got Wardens of the West. If you want to talk about that a little bit, that's hopefully, I think, one of the biggest tournaments of the year.
Thank you. Yeah. Wardens of the West is coming up late July 27th. At the Pizza Restaurant and Brew House. Fantastic place here in the Arden area in Sacramento, California. We get the whole upstairs to ourselves. We're going to have a bar up there. We're going to have up to 64 players. We have support from Simon, Baron of Dice, and more sponsors on the way. It's going to be awesome, guys. I'm actually going to do a video preview on it, so I'll talk a lot more about it. But if you are interested and you haven't heard about it, please let me know in the comments, and I'll reach out to you. So it's a pleasure to do these videos, and thank you once again. And I think that'll do it for us.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Carl. Really appreciate it.